We should do one where
I
we just
was,
get shit faced, like you, me, Patrick. We'll get Frank on there. It'd be hilarious.
oh my God.
That'd be awesome. All
I'm
right,
the biggest, I'm the biggest fucking lightweight.
are
So
you
like,
perfect? That'd be
yeah,
that'd be the
super
best
light.
hour on TV.
Oh, please. I would be gone by like 5 minutes.
All right, let's do it.
Like 15 minutes and Mara's on the floor.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Taco Time podcast. I am joined today by my friend Mara Faris. Please introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I am Mara. You might know me as Blackwing Studio on Twitter. I do art, alters, and play a whole lot of Draconic Illusionist.
Yeah, awesome. And I am Anthony DT Zakella. So I wanted to have you on the podcast today, not to do a deck tech because I've seen at least 2 or 3 of those from you already, but just to learn about you, like kind of a player profile, as it were, because you have a lot of fans. Did you know that?
Yeah, I do,
That's crazy.
and it's super crazy. I was actually just talking to some people the other day. I don't think I realized how many fans I had. Like I knew I had some
Mhm.
until like I remember the Saturday of the Pro Tour. I had like turned my phone off. I was like, I'm just focusing on these last couple of games. And then once top 8 was announced, we all went out to dinner. And I turned my phone back on, and it was just this like wall of messages and congratulations and good lucks, and we're cheering for. Like it was kind of crazy.
That's awesome, though.
I'm flattered, and I'm super glad that I have so many fans. But I definitely never expected that much support. It was cool.
Yeah, you've kind of risen pretty quickly. I remember, I think I hit you up maybe like 2 months ago on Discord, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Yo, homie, give me that list. Let me try Dromai." And then I played your list, and I was like, "I really like this because I don't like control decks necessarily, but this feels a
Mhm.
lot like Breyer with dragons, and that's way more in my speed." And I tried it at an armory, and I was like, "Oh, this is Mara's list," and they're like, "Who's Mara?" And then I played it at our local kind of big tournament called the AGE, which is on
I
par
know
with
DG.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is on par with the
Yeah.
realm. And I'd been playing it for like 2 days. So like going in totally blind, never playing Dromai, and I 3-3'd it, and I was pretty stoked about it because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing really. Um,
Mhm.
and then like the week after that, I went to an armory and there was 2 people playing the list. And I was like, "Oh, are you on Big Dragon?" They're like, "Oh, we're on Mara's list." I'm like, "Oh, interesting." And then you were on the Goliath Gauntlet, and then man, from there, like a bunch of people I know are like, "Oh, I'm on the Mara list." It's not like the Red
Yeah.
Line list. It's not the Red Hot list. It's the Mara list,
Yeah.
right? So you kind of, I guess probably the Goliath Gauntlet was kind of the catalyst for that, right? Or what do you think kind of
Yeah.
blew it up?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually telling Flake at the Pro Tour,
Hmm.
like I feel like none of this would have happened if it wasn't for the Goliath Gauntlet. Flake had messaged me when they first said they wanted me on Goliath Gauntlet. Flake had messaged me, and he's like, "Hey, we want to know if you're interested." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to." And he's like, "Can you bring some spice? Because this is supposed to be like kind of show matchy, like
Yeah.
some fun games." And I was like, "All right, Flake wants to see spice. I'll bring spice." And I had like just come off of Worlds, and like coming back from San Jose, and I had already like I'd been doing a lot of brewing with Dromai at the time. Like
Hmm.
even like the list I played in San Jose was a Big Dragon Dromai list, but ran snatches and Coaxic Commotion and E
Hmm.
Strikes. And a lot more of kind of an aggressive angle. So like that was kind of this like earliest brews of the deck. And so I'd already had kind of the gears turning, and Flake was like, "We want to see spice." So I set to work after that. I literally tore the deck apart from the ground up and just went through every single card by card. I'm like, okay, why is this card in this deck? What is the deck trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? And just really rebuilt the entire deck from there.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I told Flake at the Pro Tour, I was like, none of this would have happened if it wasn't for Goliath Gauntlet.
Yeah.
I think Goliath Gauntlet was absolutely like just that catalyst of like, hey, we want to see something different,
Sure.
and that's how it all started.
Well, I think that happens, right? When you're kind of pushed, like, because it's really easy to just like, I like dragons, I like Dromai, I'm gonna play the best deck. What is the best deck? Well, at Worlds,
Mhm.
the quote unquote best deck is probably the one that top aided, right?
Yeah.
The Italian dude, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but
Hmm.
so like a lot of people will do that and they'll maybe tweak 1 or 2 cards, right? But when
Yeah.
you're really challenged to do something like, and I've done
Yeah.
this, I've done this a little bit too. Like I'm a diehard ninja main, and I've run some really dumb ninja lists, and some of them are funny, and some of them are good. But when it comes to big tournaments, a lot of like our file lists are pretty close to each other. But
Right.
when you get to brewing and people don't expect stuff, it's kind of, you have, okay, I know this deck works because I built it and I know I've put in the time. I know why it
Hmm.
works, but also no one else knows what it is. And that is a
Yeah.
huge advantage. And so by the time we got to Pro Tour, I think people knew of what your deck was, but I think
Hmm.
most people didn't really understand how aggressive it can be, or how, like, I wouldn't call it a control deck in any sense of the word, but it definitely can pivot, right? It's not like you're just
Yeah.
playing, yeah, you're not playing Big Dragon and like hoping
Hmm.
they don't kill you. You're playing like Breyer without CM. You're playing like Cheerios Breyer, essentially, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely like, and that's how I was actually describing the list to a lot of people early on, when I was trying to kind of sell some people on trying the list. I was like, look, you guys are all like Briar mains. Like the deck doesn't play like Dromai; it plays like Briar with dragons.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a very similar play pattern where you're like, I just want these like really big aggressive turns, but then like I still have that capability of like, okay, I need to pull back for a little bit and kind of coast on my card advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Breyer can kind of like play defensive until she finds the channel mount heroic. And Dromai can kind of do the same thing of like, okay, I'm gonna play some dragons and then just like pull back and make you deal with the dragons for a while I kind of rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very similar play pattern. The only thing is you trade that like really big CMH spike potential for just a lot of raw consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So the nicest thing about the deck being redline is you like you never have bad hands. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you have some hands that are better than others, but you don't ever have the like, oh well, I just drew 3 blues and I have just an unplayable hand. Like, it is nearly impossible for you to have an unplayable hand,
Sure.
unless you've made mistakes with like ash constraints and things like that. But generally speaking, like, just you have 4 reds every turn, you're gonna have
Something powerful, right?
really powerful and aggressive
Yeah,
turns.
and even if you
And it's
don't, even
nice.
if you just have to go like block, here's a CNC, deal with it. That's still not bad,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's fine.
Something I was thinking about the other day actually with this list is you kind of almost do have CMH turns, but it happens a lot more often. And what I mean
Mhm.
by that is CMH, you can get 3 attacks in, you get an extra 3 points of value off each one, right? There's
Mhm.
been days that I've played your list where I've been like kind of mid-rangey, grindy, but there's also days where you like, I know you're not on the Crown anymore, but
Right.
when we were on Crown, there would be days where I'd like pop Crown, get 3 Ash, and then just drop 3 0-cost dragons, and then send 9 damage at them, right? And then
Oh yeah.
they have to kill the dragons. So essentially, like, you're getting the extra 3 points of value because you're gaining 3 life because they're
Mhm.
not attacking you. So it's kind of like better Briar in some respect, I think.
I don't want to say that because I don't want to make people angry, but I'm very pleased with the performance of the deck.
Yeah, 100%. So I think I was thinking about the first time that I met you, and I started playing Fab in Everfest,
Mhm.
and I don't remember how I came across your art stuff, but I remember the first time I met you was in New Jersey. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I had been playing for like a month or two, and I found out,
Mhm.
oh, the first Pro Tour is coming up, and I was like, oh, sweet. Like, I never got to go to a Pro Tour for Magic when I played because I was too young. And so I saw your art on Twitter or Discord or something, and I was like, I got to meet this person. So I remember I was playing Briar, and you had every token I needed. You had embodiment of lightning, embodiment of earth, and I came and I hunted you down. And like at that point, you were just kind of like off doing your own thing, and I think you had 1 or 2 friends with you. And I was thinking about like the times that I've seen you in person and how that has changed. So New Jersey, like, I felt like, okay, she's new, she's like me, like we know a couple people. You're kind of doing your own thing. And then the next time I saw you was at Nationals. And then like a lot of people were like around you, and I was like, oh, cool. Like Heralds getting really popular. That's awesome. And then I remember seeing, did you play the calling at Nats or did you play in Nats? I don't remember.
I played at Nats.
Okay. So I remember I scrubbed out in Nats hard. And then I remember
Mhm.
playing the calling and walking around. And then I saw you in day 2 and I was like, oh, that's sick. Just killing it.
Mhm.
Right. And then at Worlds, more people. And then at Pro Tour, you're like the life of the fucking party. It was awesome.
It was pretty nuts.
Yeah, so you made a name for yourself, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, the last like couple of months particularly have just been this like absolute like landslide between just like kind of like the art's been getting a little bit more traction. I've been doing a lot more like high profile stuff. Like I like, you know, if you know, you're familiar with the Realms, the Brawl series.
Yeah, of course.
I did all of the art for all the prize support for the Brawl series.
That's awesome.
Like there's a playmat for the winners, and they've got a whole line of tokens that they've been doing, and all of that is my art. So like I got a lot of exposure there. I got a lot of, especially like once the Brawl series kind of got picked up by LSS, to where like now those are all battle hardens. So now like you can go check the LSS website, and on the Brawl events, like on all the prize support, it says Blackwing Studio tokens, which is really cool.
That's really cool.
So like I was already starting to get some really big traction just from a lot of exposure there and a lot of things like that. And then I don't know, everything just sort of like clicked for gameplay too, like after the Goliath Gauntlet. And then I literally went top 8 Battle Hardened Charlotte, top 8 the PTI event in Charlotte, 5-2 the Battle Hardened in Richmond, top 8 the PTI event in Richmond, top 8 the Pro Tour. Like that's literally the last 5 major events I've been in. That's been my finishes.
Damn, that's gold.
And yeah, so it's been wild. Like I have a Patreon, and I've had a Patreon for the last like 3 years, and for the first 2 3/4 years, it's been about like 3 patrons, and it's like just good friends of mine mostly, and now I'm at 90 something patrons.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's been wild. Like I just every morning I keep just checking up. I'm like, oh, I have 4 new patrons.
Yeah.
So that's been surreal, like, you know, and it's cool because I like that I have this Patreon now that I can do my art stuff, and like I'll post like sketches and things like that, and then I'll give away like free tokens and things for some of the patron tiers. But then also I just post all my Dromai ramblings. I'm just like, hey, I have a weird idea. I'm just gonna post this to Patreon.
Yeah.
You know, that was part of kind of where like all my patrons knew about the breaking point thing like weeks ago.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember I walked up to you at the Pro Tour in the lobby, and I was like, "Are you on Breaking Point?" And you're like, "Are you a patron of mine?" And I was like, "No, fool."
Yeah,
I know who sold you the Breaking Point.
that was pretty funny. Yeah, no, the Breaking Point. It was just like I had a random just musing on my Patreon that I just posted a list. I was like, I've been playing around with some stuff and testing Lexi, and I think this card might be playable.
Yeah.
like I think even in the patron list, I'm like, please don't unsubscribe, but like I think this card might be good.
So funny. Yeah, we've been playing because Lexi's like become AIDS, right? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So all the Fi guys, we're all on like 3 CNCs and Breaking Points now. And it's like it works. It's like in most use cases, most of the time, it's not the best, which is why we never played it. And then now that there's Rangers everywhere, it's like blow up the arsenal. That's all I care about. Give me 2 cards every turn that I can, you know?
No. Yeah. And for Dromai, it's great too because they can't deal with Ashwings really well
at all.
So like you're just like, here's 3 Ashwings, and now Breaking Point is live for the rest of the game.
Yep.
Like you're not going to get rid of these Ashwings.
It's so inefficient.
You have to be perpetually afraid of Breaking Point every turn for the rest 100%. Of the game.
They have to get you to a point where you're like on 1 and you just can't do go again. Otherwise, they just get overwhelmed and can't handle it. So I was on Twitter the other day and I was thinking about like what makes a professional Flesh and Blood player, or what makes a professional card game player, and we had like a conversation about it, and a bunch of people chimed in, and it sounds like you might have pulled it off, man. Like you got a bunch of patrons, your art is doing really well. I don't know, is this all you're doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, so the art has been my full-time job for a while now.
Sure.
I've been doing art professionally since 2011. Okay. So like I'm hesitant to say like I'm doing the professional card game thing because I don't want to jinx it, but it's kind of looking like like I said, I've already been doing the art stuff, and the art stuff's still going really well. But now I've got this other like angle where people want to see my art and they want to hear me talk about cards.
That's awesome.
And then like the prize money. Like I say, the last couple of events I've been doing pretty well in.
I saw you bought a car.
And
that's so good.
I bought a car.
That's so good.
It feels so weird. Like it's funny. The timing worked out really perfect because like my like I've been on that like, oh well, I have a car with 270,000 miles, but it's not worth selling, so I'm just gonna drive this car until it dies.
Yep.
And it died the weekend after the Pro Tour,
Nice.
and I was just like,
that's
it was like literally
timing.
like yeah, like 2 days after the car died, the check from LSS cleared, and I was just like,
thank you God.
well, like I had a couple of thousand sort of saved, and I was like, this is just my when this car dies, I'm gonna go buy another just real cheap, nothing car to kind of keep getting me through.
Sure.
But then I'm just like, I've got 20 grand in the bank. I think I want to go buy a nice car for the first time in my life.
That's not gonna blow up in 3 years. I'm like that too.
Yeah.
My wife is like, when are you gonna get a new car? I have this really old Honda that's like missing body parts. You know what I mean? And it's like,
that was mine.
I always tell her, it's cheaper to keep her, man. Like, if something breaks, you just fix it. Like, why am I going to spend 30, 40, 25, 20 grand on a car when I could just like spend $600 and spend an afternoon in the driveway and could be good for another 50,000 miles. But there's something very nice about a new, like, this isn't my car anymore. It's comfortable. It doesn't smell weird.
Yeah.
It hasn't been broken into a couple times,
Yeah.
It hasn't been bastardized yet, for sure.
Although like I've gained a new responsibility and I'm a little scared of it. So, all of our locals, we all carpool and everything whenever it's like RTN season or it's ProQuest season.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of like carpools are like, all right, who's driving this week? Who's driving that week? And we all just, we'll drive like 3 or 4 hours to go to some of the big ProQuests and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of been exempt from that because I'm like, hey guys, I'll drive. My car's got 270,000 miles, and I'm collecting lights on the dashboard like they're trading cards.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? We'll let Kevin drive.
So I have an SUV, and I intentionally don't have back seats. So anytime somebody asks me for a ride, I'm like, I got room for one person. Like, that's it. And it's massive. And I'm like, yeah, if you guys want to sit in the back on the floor, but
just strap in.
We might die, just so you know.
That's my old car.
That's how you do it. Like, that's how you do it. I remember.
But
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but now I've got this really nice car with leather interior and like
screwed.
It's all digital everything and like, oh my gosh! And I'm just like, oh man, I'm gonna have to drive to stuff now. They're gonna all want to ride my car. It's got heated seats on everything.
And you live in a cold area too. Here in California, it doesn't matter. It's like, in the winter, it's 68, and in the summer, it's 82. So, like, just windows down. But I remember when we were kids, none of us could drive. We were like 15, 14. And we had this one friend who was a foreign exchange college student from Japan. And he had like a 1987 Honda Civic that was like a death trap. And we would stick like 6 people in that thing. And he had no money, and his tires were bald. And I remember... we had to like pull some crazy mental gymnastics to convince our parents to let him drive because A, he didn't speak almost any English, right? and B, he had this death trap of a car. And I remember one day we were coming home, and he like missed a turn, and he like tried to swerve, but his car was such a piece of shit that it like swerved into a wall, and all of our parents had to come, and he was like crying, and so it turned into our parents being super pissed. And then they got there and they saw him crying and they're like, "Oh, it's okay, honey. Like, it's not your fault." It's like, it was so funny. So it's,
oh my gosh.
At least if you bring people, you don't have to worry about killing anybody on an accident. You got a safe car now. We have a safe car.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But, yeah, it's now I'm gonna have to drive to stuff, and I don't want to. I liked being lazy and didn't have to drive.
So now you can overestimate gas money though. That's always a plus. Like, yeah, it's like there's 5 of us, so like $20 each is probably good, or whatever.
Oh yeah, except my car has just like a digital readout that has like very clear like gas mileage, like how many miles per gallon I've got on this trip.
They're gonna know.
I know.
See, there is some utility to having a broken a dashboard.
Yeah, maybe I just like tape it over.
I think it seems reasonable, honestly. So how did you get into Flesh and Blood? How long have you been playing this game?
So I've been playing since actually not too much longer than you've been playing, I think.
Okay.
I literally started the game just barely before Everfest.
Okay.
Like I remember I'd been playing the game for like just a couple of weeks when like Everfest spoilers started.
Cool.
My first ever event was the Farewell to Welcome to Wraith draft.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was so. All right. I had actually initially gotten the game. I didn't intend to actually get into the game at all. It was, like I said, I've been doing art for about 11, was it 12 years now. And I used to travel with Star City as a magic altarist.
Okay.
I used to have a booth at pretty much every Star City event, just doing magic art and altars and selling magic tokens. And then COVID happened, and all the SCG events shut down, and everything was kind of ground to a halt. And so just kind of as we were kind of coming out of COVID, and Star City was kind of dragging their feet on wanting to restart doing events again, I started kind of looking around for like, okay, what else can I kind of expand into? Look for a couple new little revenue streams, some other games, and like I kept hearing about this Flesh and Blood game, and I was like, okay, it's this new game, it's kind of picking up a little bit of traction. And I remember talking to a couple of people, specifically like I remember having a conversation with Ward Warren, who is one of the big head judges in Flesh and Blood. Okay. He's one of the big Pro Tour head judges. His name is in the rule book.
Oh wow.
But he's also one of the guys that runs all the events for Star City. And so like Ward and I have worked together for years. And so Ward's a good friend of mine. And I knew he was involved in this Flesh and Blood thing, and I didn't really know a lot about it. And so I was just having a conversation with him like, hey, I'm thinking about kind of maybe trying to do altars for some other games. What can you tell me about this Flesh and Blood game? And
Sure.
So, we talked about it, and he's like, yeah, it has these heroes and these equipment. They would be really good candidates for that sort of thing because they're kind of always out and because he literally helped write the rule book. He and I had a long conversation about like what's legal for altars and things like that, and like what things I can do. And so he literally just gave me a handful of tokens from Tales of Aria, just like literally like just like an Oldham token and a Lexi token and a couple of the weapons, and just to kind of take home and sort of play with, and just sort of figure out like just painting and stuff like that. And then from there I was kind of like, well, if I want to do this just to do work, I should probably just learn the rules of the game.
Sure.
So then I sat down with T. Tebow, who plays for Team Magnolia. Yep. He's a really good friend of mine.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, T's a real good friend of mine. We've been friends for several years now, and so it was really funny because like we started to do the Ira promo, the starter decks,
sure,
and then like ran out of time that day and didn't get finished, and then like I think the next day or something like that, he was like, "Hey, I've got some actual decks on me. We can, if you want to try and like play a real game." And I remember the first time I ever got to play a real game of cards, he handed me Turtle Katsu.
Nice.
against, and I played against a Bravo. Had just no idea what I was doing. That is not like a super newbie friendly game.
Not at all, yeah.
And it's funny because he still laughs because like I had no idea the concept of the value of cards, and I was like just like manhandling his tunic.
That's awesome.
And he's like, please be careful, that card is expensive. And I was like, oh, this one?
You're like, what does this say? I can't read it. Give me that.
Yeah. But so then we didn't have time to finish that game because of course we didn't. That was an hour-long game waiting to happen.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah. And then so he just goes, hey, you like to draft in Magic, right? And I'm like, yeah, I love drafting. Like Sealed has always been kind of my format in Magic. He's like, there's a Flesh and Blood draft tomorrow night. Just come and play the draft.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know anything about this game. I've never even finished a whole game. He's like, you'll be fine. You can draft Magic, you can draft Fab. So I showed up because I like Sealed. And it was the Farewell to Welcome to Wraith draft. And I had no idea. I drafted Go Tall Dorinthia because I didn't understand how Go Again worked.
For sure.
So I was just like, well, these are big numbers. I'm just going to hit this Dawn Blade for a bunch of damage.
Yeah.
And I went 2-1 in that draft.
Nice. That's a win.
my only loss in that draft was to T
Okay.
in the final round.
That's awesome.
And so I think that was the moment that I got hooked in the game. I was like, all right, this game's actually pretty fun. And like after that, I built a Prism deck and kind of fell in love with Illusionist. And this was like right at ProQuest Season 1. Like I think I'd been playing the game for maybe like 2 weeks when ProQuest Season 1 hit.
Okay. Did you do the thing that I did where you like I did the same thing. We walked into our LGS, my wife and I, and we were like, how do we start? And they're like, there's these pre-con decks, and we're like, okay, cool. And then my wife got Levia, and then I got Chain, and I fell in love with it. And then like 2 weeks later, I was like, hey babe, I spent $900 on equipment. Did you do that with Prism? You did, didn't you? Oh, it's so bad.
Oh, it was the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was the thing. And so it's funny, admittedly. I was really back and forth between Prism and Dash when I first started, and partially I picked Prism because her equipment at the time was cheaper, and like Prism didn't need Tunic, she didn't need some of the others. Like I don't even think she ran Skullcap at the time. I think she was still on the Halo Illumination.
Was this like Tyler's list, like similar to Horsepool's list?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, like the Vestige of Soul Tome Prism list. So then like the first week of ProQuest had happened, and then our LGS with like Star City Games is my LGS. So Star City had their ProQuest coming up on like week 2, and I wasn't gonna go. I was like, there's no way. I don't know what I'm doing in this game. I'm playing for 2 weeks. I'm not gonna go play a ProQuest.
Yeah.
And T like dragged me out. He's like, come on, it's literally your LGS. It's just down, like it's here.
Yeah.
Just come play the one event. You'll be fine. And I got 9th at that event.
That's awesome.
And so like at the end of that afternoon, T's like, all right, so you're gonna come with us to all the rest of the ProQuests, right? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, you're coming with us to all the rest of the ProQuests.
So what you're saying is you were held hostage. Like you didn't really want to play Fab. You just
absolutely.
Yeah.
Tebow held me hostage till I played this game good.
Did he send you a vendor request as a thank you? He's like, oh, you got second at the Pro Tour. I'll be taking 10% as your agent.
No, but I actually did. I told him I would at least buy him a really nice dinner.
That's
and
fair.
I still owe him for that.
That's fair.
Because we ended up not going out to dinner together after the Pro Tour. But yeah, no, I absolutely owe T at least like a really nice dinner. Because T was also one of the ones that pushed me to do the Patreon stuff, to start doing like all the Fab content. Because I was like really hesitant to put Fab content on my Patreon. I was like, oh, it's just art stuff. I don't want to like have to make people choose between doing art or like just my card game stuff. And I was like, nobody's gonna care about my card game stuff. No one cares to listen about just Dromai. Like, nobody cares about this hero like I do. I was wrong.
You were wrong.
Turns out there's a lot of people that care about this hero like I do.
The cult around Illusionist in general is something that I kind of knew about because I'm local to Tyler, and I know how much he and Andrew Rudin, who's like another local guy on his team, are obsessed with Prism. And then when I joined one of the mutual Discords that we're in and saw the amount of like, what would be the word? Maybe like simping to the absolute max of like Dark Odious and them for Prism, I was like, wow, I didn't realize they took it so seriously.
Yeah, but see, like that's always been the thing that sort of surprised me is like, there's been the Prism simping is absolutely real. There's so many.
Yeah.
But like, I never felt like you really saw that with Dromai. Like, there just aren't a whole lot of Dromai simps, and so I really I fell in love with Dromai and kind of felt like I was the only one for a while. Like I felt like everyone else who was on Dromai were just like people biding their time until Prism comes back.
Sure.
I think some of them still are. I think like the Dark Odious crowd, like I can't imagine most of them sticking around Dromai once new Prism comes out. I think most of them are going to jump ship pretty quick.
Do you think that with the spoilers that we saw at the Pro Tour that new Prism is just going to be like light Dromai with the angels. I'm kind of afraid that's going to happen.
I literally was just having this conversation earlier today. I really hope that's not going to happen. I hope that she finds her own flavor. Because like I kind of like it's funny like when when the dragon allies came out, I think everyone was a little bit like kind of salty about it. They're like, oh, this isn't really Illusionist. This is something else.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like so in love with the allies. I'm like, stay away from my mechanic. This is mine.
Yeah.
You go back to your auras. You can have the auras.
God, the auras are so annoying though. I think I'd rather them have some kind of ally, but man, those auras, yeah, it's rough.
I mean, like I think as a general rule, we have seen LSS generally has done a really good job of making every hero feel like they have their own flavor.
Sure.
There's definitely like overlap, but like you can't compare like Breyer and Chain. Like, yeah, they're both Rune Blades, and yeah, they both play some of the same cards, but those decks do not play the same at all.
Like at all.
Yeah, like not like, and even like Breyer and Viserai.
Yeah.
Breyer and Viserai, I would argue, are closer, but still, just they don't feel anything like the same deck. The Bravo and Oldham do not feel like the same deck.
Not even a little bit.
So I am cautiously hopeful that they'll find a really nice way of incorporating the allies into Prism without making her feel like just light Dromai.
Sure. I think if they drop like 2 or 3 decent angel allies and like it's a nice addition to the flavor, it's fine as long as there's not like 15 of them, right?
I feel like we're gonna get the full 8.
Yeah, you think so?
Like yeah. So like we've already seen 2 of Prism's Heralds as allies. Because each of the, like for those of your listeners who don't know already, Shariah and Balana are Herald of Erudition and Wartune Herald, respectively.
Okay.
Like each of the heralds of the Prism Heralds has its own like lore.
Okay.
And each of the heralds has a name. And those are 2 of the herald. Like Balana is the Wartune Herald.
Okay.
Like you can see, like if you look at the extended art Wartune Herald, there's a bit of like flavor text that's not on the normal one that talks about Balana. So like I suspect we've already seen the 2, and then if you look at the new stained glass art that we got for Dust to Dawn,
so pretty, right?
Yeah, it's gorgeous art. And I'm super excited because I think it's going to be one of the Armory playmats. I think it was a new Armory
next
kit
month, I think,
announcement.
Right?
Yeah. The images of all 8 heralds are in that art.
Interesting. Okay.
So I think it's safe to assume that we are probably going to see allies for all 8 of the heralds. But like depending on just like how they make them happen and how the mechanic works, sure. I think is gonna kind of infer some things. Like notably, they don't have Phantasm, but they do have Ward.
Yeah.
Which is already going to substantially impact how they are interacted with. So it'll be interesting. Like I've got faith. I think they'll figure out a way to make it feel mechanically unique.
Sure, that makes sense. Do you think that you're gonna not jump ship, but do you think that you're gonna spend a decent amount of time exploring Prism, or do you think you're pretty stuck for right now?
I think it's inevitable that I will probably at least brew with it a little bit.
Sure.
But like I've fallen in love with Dromai so much. And I still feel like Dromai is still not a solved deck.
Yeah.
I don't even think Dromai is close to being a solved deck. I think just the massive amount of like civil war that's been happening between like the big dragon Dromai players and the people that kind of follow the Empress Dromai, the red line list.
Yeah.
You
versus
I think just that.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of. I've definitely got my followers, but I think it absolutely is like there are a lot of Dromai players that are just diehard. We will never play Empress Dromai. We will never play this list. This list is not a good. Like Jamie Faulkner has been very vocal about his distaste for that list, and I know Noah and the Cabal.
The Cabal, exactly.
The Cabal. This is the funniest thing ever. There is a Cabal of anti Empress Dromai Like it's just a bunch of the Dromai players, the Big Dragon Dromai players that got together to all brew together for the Pro Tour, and like very specifically did not engage with me at all.
Yeah.
That
It's
was
funny
pretty
too because
funny.
when you think of a cabal, you think of like this big scary group of dudes or like bad
Yeah.
guys, right? And then it ends up being Jamie Faulkner, who's like this cute little redhead from the UK, who's just loud and angry all the time. But I will say this, and I don't know if you know this, but me and Shamir and Jamie were watching your what is it, quarterfinals match against Brody,
hmm
and as much as he will never admit it, even after this comes out, he was definitely rooting for you, 100%.
Yeah.
So you have a friend of me at least.
I'm sure. I mean, like, and Jamie and I are still friends.
Of course,
Like,
yeah,
we still like chat. And we're like we will never agree on how Dromai will be played, but like we're still friends. And like I love Jamie to death.
yeah, he's a good dude. He's funny.
Yeah.
Really funny character.
Yeah.
So what's next? What's the plan? Are you just gonna? Do you think that your deck is basically done? Or are you still constantly updating it?
Uh, I don't think the deck's ever going to be really done.
Mm-hmm.
I think the core of the deck feels really good.
Yeah.
Like I think the principle of the deck is there. I think the core of the deck's really solid. I do think the framework is very flexible. It's actually one of the things that I really like. And I know like Jamie and them like to kind of make fun of me when I say this, but like Empress Dromai is not an aggro deck. Empress Dromai is a value engine.
Sure.
And the core philosophy behind Empress Dromai is just I want to get more value per turn every turn cycle of the game than my opponent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the deck is built to do.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of happens that the way to do that in the current meta is a more aggressive angle. There are just more above rate aggressive cards than there are above rate defensive cards.
Sure, that makes sense.
But at the same time, like if you watch my Lexi matchups,
Mm-hmm.
I side out a lot of the aggressive options in that deck in favor of more defensive stuff. I bring in the Sync Blows, I bring in more 3 blocks. I side out the Flame Call Awakening package entirely, as well as the Blaze Headlongs, because they're 2 blocks.
Yeah.
Because the more we tested with Lexi, the more we find they're like, oh, sometimes I can just get more value by blocking than attacking.
Yeah.
Just Lexi has so many of these big powerful on hits that like I can give you 2 cards and still get 8 or 9 points of value because of a good block. Same thing with like why we ran like Arcanite Skullcap.
Mm-hmm.
Just that like just being able to hit those little breakpoints to just outvalue your opponent. And so like it stays true to the core of what the deck wants to do without having to like give up too much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's definitely not as aggressive. Like my games into Lexi are not nearly as aggressive as like my games into Phi.
Sure.
Whereas like when I was playing the deck more for the Phi meta, it's just go 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 go. I just want to hit you for like every card in my deck is going to hit you for 4 or more.
Yeah.
Like, and I think there's still like there's a list that I've got right now that I tested for the Pro Tour for a while, and then kind of moved back to this sort of more middle of the road deck. But there's a full control Empress list that I was testing for a while. That's just full sinks, full fates, full sand covers, and just a bunch of 0 for 4 blocks. And so there's probably going to be a meta at some point where that's the best version of Empress, and it's going to be a heavy control list,
Sure.
but still keeping that same fundamental. So yeah, like I don't think the deck itself is ever going to be really done.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually one of the things that I really like about if I'm gonna pick a single hero to just kind of be my hero forever, having a hero that feels as flexible as Dromai is really nice for that. I feel like I can build a Dromai deck to beat basically anything.
Sure.
So the question is not can I make Dromai good into the meta in any given meta? It's what is the best Dromai deck to beat the current meta?
Yeah, of course. I think the thing that's interesting about Dromai, and I guess about Illusionists in general, because back in the Prism days, you could build the Super Controller Prism, or you could build with the auras, or you could just build like, I have a bunch of stuff that you can't pop every turn that comes in for way above rate, with the Heralds. But I think the thing that's interesting with Dromai is that she has kind of all the tools at her disposal to do that. So like
Mhm.
we saw Nathan's Breyer deck that was kind of like more defensive,
Yeah.
and that deck was like it was good, but it was also like a pile of jank, right? But he made it work.
Uh-huh.
And that's not like an insult to Breyer, but like
No.
Breyer has to find a bunch of ways to take advantage of non of classless cards of generics. Whereas
Mhm.
Dromai is like I can use the core stuff that's in every Dromai deck or in the sideboard and just manipulate the way that I play the game, and it becomes a completely different thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think she has a lot of the tools already at her disposal. I, as also a fellow Draconic player, am really bummed that we're probably not going to see any specific Draconic support for like a long time.
Yeah.
That's kind of a bummer, but I think that she has a strong enough footing that anything. I won't say anything, but a lot of stuff that comes out in Dust to Dawn is probably going to be at least an option for her to explore.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think that she has kind of like a bright future ahead of her.
I do. Also, I have like this is we're getting into wild speculation territory, but I have a theory that we may see some Draconic cards in Dust to Dawn. Just because, so it is a supplemental set. We're
Yep.
going to see a lot of just sort of expanded stuff for everybody. And I kind of wonder if instead of getting a bunch of different class cards, we're going to get a bunch of different talent cards.
That'd be cool.
Because I mean, we're obviously going to get a lot of light cards. We're going to get a lot of shadow cards.
Mhm.
It wouldn't surprise me to see them sort of forego giving us a bunch of extra class cards in all the different classes and instead give us a bunch of talent cards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Give us a couple more Draconic cards to play with.
I don't think that's that wild, honestly. I think that's a pretty good, some pretty good foresight on your part. I have heard people talk about that, like, oh, we're not going to get anything, and then somebody's like, actually, if you look at Everfest, like everybody kind of got something, and the reason that Lexi is as cracked as she is now, like the last set was good for Lexi, but really, it was Everfest, right? You got a ton of amazing support in that set.
Everfest was just an amazing set for everybody.
Yeah, and I remember
like Prism got the blue auras in Everfest.
It's such an undervalued set. Like you can still to this day buy boxes of Everfest for like $50 at most of the LGSs around here.
Yeah.
So I think if you're speccing, it might be a good idea to buy up some Everfest before it becomes a little bit more scarce.
Yeah.
So do you still play Magic at all?
I have not officially quit playing Magic. That said, I have not played a game of Magic in months.
Yeah.
I was actually just literally today kind of looking. I've got like some modern decks, and they just made all these big, WotC just made all these big announcements of like, oh, we're gonna make big sweeping ban announcements and stuff coming up soon. And I'm like, I should probably see about just selling off some of these decks just because I'm not gonna touch them anytime soon. I'm gonna probably hold on to my commander decks just because they're still fun and I still like them.
Sure.
But I haven't touched Magic in quite a while.
Were you pretty competitive when you played?
I was pretty reasonably competitive, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was a super competitive Magic player too, and actually one of the reasons I quit, and I'm an old person, so one of the reasons that I quit was because of Commander. Like I was super into competitive Magic, and I think that's kind of all there was. There wasn't really like when we went to the LGS back then, you didn't jam like casual games, you just drafted. If nobody wanted to play Construct, you just drafted, right? And so I think that was kind of how LSS is now. I think in the early years, it's obvious that we'll have a super competitive scene because I think that's how most games start. I know a lot of people are super stoked about the PvE aspect and like maybe more casual formats popping up for Fab. But I know that like as somebody who used to be, and like those memories of playing Magic when I was younger, I cherish those, right? Like I met some of my best friends that way, all those things, right? But when I see the direction that WotC's been taking the last couple of years, it like makes me, it's like three emotions. One is enraged, two is baffled, and the third one is like kind of, I almost get this like elitist feel because we play Fab and we have like this company that, James comes to all the events and like, it feels like they actually kind of give a shit about the game and the players. Whereas with Magic, it's like a bunch of suits throwing shit at the wall and nothing's really sticking lately.
No, I super get that same feeling. I do think having the more casual side of things, especially for Fab, I think is going to be important in the long run. I think it is a good way to build the player base, and but it is nice to have a game where you're right, like the creator cares, the competitive scene is still important to them. Like I don't see Fab like going the way of WotC anytime soon, of just completely forsaking their competitive base.
Sure.
Because like I mean, I think if you're old enough, like WotC was really big in the competitive thing for a while. Like there was a whole, play the game, see the world, and all of this like, real big hype into like that dream of playing the game professionally, like we'd kind of talked about.
Yeah.
And then WotC just kind of decided that just wasn't what they wanted out of their game anymore, and they just they gutted it entirely. They canceled the pro tours and just let the game kind of coast on just its casual scene. And and I think you're seeing the consequences of that now.
Yeah.
Like competitive Magic is just not been doing well. Like I mean, I think it's been doing better. Like I think they are trying to kind of pick it back up, and I don't want to totally disparage anyone who's still really enjoying competitive Magic. But
I don't know if this is just me being like biased, but I think that Fab actually has a lot to do with that too. Like I think
so too. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I think they absolutely looked at Fab and went, "Oh, maybe we bailed out on this too soon."
Yeah, all those players that were supporting the competitive scene, they're selling their cards. That's probably not a good thing. And like Magic is like, and you never really want to say this because it's probably not true, but Magic is kind of too big to fail at this point. There's like the player base is so insane, right?
Oh, I know. No, I agree.
So I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I just think that they're going to lose. How do you say this? I think that there's probably 10% of people that play Magic that actually really care about Magic, right? There's a lot of people that play casually, maybe once every couple of weeks or with friends once a month or whatever. And then you have the people that have been around since the beginning. And I'm sure Fab will have that too 20 years from now when we're all geezers and still showing up at events.
Oh, I'm sure.
And we all are in Brian Kibler mode where we look like crazy hermits. You know what I mean? But
yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I think that they're trying to course correct, but I think they're going about it the super wrong way. So it makes me really sad to see how that's going. But it was really cool. Like today, I saw Brian Gottlieb basically cussing someone out on Twitter for talking.
Oh my god, I saw that! I saw that literally like 5 minutes before coming onto the show. Yeah,
that was kind of awesome because Brian's he's like a Magic guy, and he's in our world now. But like he's like that the amount of passion that I see people have for this game is nothing else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it is, and like I think it goes all the way through this game. I think that has been more than anything that pulled me into this game. Is I mean, like, yeah, sure, the gameplay's great, the mechanics are fun. It's the community.
It's 100%.
I don't know what it is about. I mean, like this community. Like, I will never forget. Like, I think the moment to me was PT1 going to New Jersey. I was this really kind of like I'd only just kind of started making a little bit of a name for myself just in the art stuff, and I just even then at the very beginning, I had so many people that were just like, "Hey, it's really cool to meet you. Hey, I want to like even like at the very beginning, I had both Brendan Patrick and Flake from the very very beginning were both like they were like following me on Twitter and retweeting all my stuff. Both of them put in big commissions. When I was an absolute nobody in this game, and they both talked about them on their podcasts. Flake still talks about the altars that I did for him when I was just nobody. Like you'll hear him talk about I did a Katsu, I did a Luke Skywalker Katsu for him, and he's still like I think he talked about it on his podcast like a month or so ago, or a couple of weeks ago again, just like brought it up, and there's something in this community where everybody wants to just help everybody wants to support everybody. I mean, even just being on a podcast like this, I did this same thing in Magic for 10 years. I was active in the community. I was at every single Star City event. I did art and altars. In 10 years of doing this for Magic, I have been on 2 podcasts.
Wow.
In barely over a year in Flesh and Blood, I think I have lost count of the number of podcasts that I've been on at this point. Just because, like I say, it's just everybody wants to support everybody. Everyone wants to see this game do well. everybody wants to go out of their way to be like, hey, you're a new player, let's come on, let's go play some games, let's go do some stuff,
Yeah, it's
and
interesting.
I'm
Good.
I just say, like, I being a part of that makes me feel so good. I am proud to be a part of this community in a way that I have never felt playing Magic the Gathering.
100%, I agree with that. I don't know what it is. I'm not really sure why it is, but even there's like a few moments that I can remember where like I knew that there was something special about the people that play Flesh and Blood, and one of them was like at Worlds, I think it was Vietfam's like car got broken into, and everybody
Mhm.
rallied around him to get him a deck built in like
Yeah,
30
I remember hearing
minutes.
about that.
And
Yeah.
the same thing happened with who was it? Yuki, I think for Pro Tour. Like they lost her luggage and she had her decks in her carry-on, so she was fine. But
Mhm.
same thing happened with Yuki, and I remember seeing like 5 minutes ago, Yuki tweeted, and it was like, "Stupid airline lost my luggage," right? And then in those 5 or 10 minutes that the tweet had been out, there was like 15 posts underneath, like, "What do you need? We got you." And
Yeah.
it's just the amount of support. And I was thinking about that the other day too, like. When something goes wrong in this community, I feel like everybody cares a lot. Whereas
Absolutely.
in other communities, it's just par for the course. Like
Mhm.
there was a big Yu-Gi-Oh tournament here a couple months ago, and like 2 fights happened, a bunch of stuff got stolen, and all the Yu-Gi-Oh players were like, "Yeah, that's Yu-Gi-Oh." Whereas like if a fight happened at a pro tour, like
Oh god.
the shit would hit the fan, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
None of us would stand for that.
Like, no. Yeah, no, if you just imagine, like, somebody picks a fight with just like anybody in our community, like, you're gonna have a whole bunch of real pissed off Flesh and Blood
Yeah,
players.
yeah.
Like, I just now I almost just like just once I want somebody to just like go pick a fight with like Flake,
Just try
just
it.
like
Just
some
try it.
just try it. Like I just want some Magic commentator to just shit talk Flake on Twitter.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, like, you even see it like with Dagon and the MetaZoo thing.
I know. Everybody was
Like,
on MetaZoo's like Twitter just trolling the shit out of them. Like that's our guy, man. Don't do
yeah,
that.
like you guys, like, yeah, like it was funny because like they did it. There was a thing like just a couple of months ago where they made some comment and about like reinstating Dagon or
Mhm.
something about like, hey, he can come back and play MetaZoo again, and I don't even remember all the details, and I just remember just a bunch of a bunch of Flesh Blood players just laying into them,
Yep.
and a bunch of like Magic players and other things were like, what the hell? Why are all these Flesh and Blood players all assholes? And we're like, no, you don't get it.
You don't
They
understand.
fucked with our guy. Like,
I don't know if you know this,
like,
but we are actually a certified cult and we are registered.
it's true. Like, it's like it's cool. They fucked with our guy. Just the entire body of Flesh and Blood just like moved against Metas.
it's true. It is what it is. Don't mess with our
uh,
people. We will come for you.
yeah, yeah, no,
100%.
absolutely.
So we're coming up on an
Um,
hour. I don't want to keep you for too long.
all right.
But this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. Thank you so
And
much.
Mara is super friendly. If you want to know more or learn more or talk to her about more stuff, how can people reach you?
So yeah, primary is I'm just at Blackwing Studio on Twitter. My DMs are basically always open if you ever want to just ask me questions about like art commissions or tokens, or just ask about Dromai. Like I have just like a dozen questions just from random people about Dromai stuff like every couple of days,
That's
and I
awesome.
love just talking about the deck, and am more than happy to chat with just about anybody. Um, I do have an Etsy shop. It's also Blackwing Studio on Etsy, where you can just buy some of my original art tokens and things
Mhm.
like that. We mentioned before my also Blackwing Studio on Patreon. The Patreon, I literally just posted the update to the Empress Dromai primer post PT Baltimore about 2 or 3 days ago.
Mhm.
The Empress Dromai guide is now 35 pages long.
Jesus.
And that doesn't count all of just my random ramblings about like, hey, I think I have a weird idea.
Mhm.
But then I also do like, you can do patron tiers where you can get free tokens every month, free altars every month. You can just subscribe just to hear me ramble about Dromai stuff. Yeah, I think those are the big three: the Patreon, Etsy, and then at Blackwing Studio on Twitter.
That's awesome.
Um, Yeah, no, it's been great. Anyone, feel free reach out to me on any of the platforms. I'm always just happy to talk to anybody about this wonderful game.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
I am Anthony. If you want to find me on Twitter and just listen to me post salty crap all day, it's of the taco, and on Discord Del Taco. And I will see you at Nationals, and hopefully we'll talk sooner than later.
Awesome.
Bye,
Yeah,
friend.
I'll see you again.
Talk soon. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Of
All right,
course.
bye bye.
Bye.